Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Get ready for one of the most infuriating, tragic, and ultimately triumphant stories in the entire history of science. Imagine you discover a simple truth, a single action that could save thousands of lives every year. You have the data, you have the proof, you see the results with your own eyes. But when you share it, you're not hailed as a hero. You're called a charlatan, a madman. You're ridiculed, fired, and driven to such despair that you end up locked away in an asylum, left to die. This isn't a horror movie plot. It's the real-life story of Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis, the man who fought a war for the simple act of washing your hands. Our story begins in 1846 at the Vienna General Hospital, one of the most prestigious medical centers in the world. It was a beacon of scientific progress, but for women giving birth, it was a place of terror. The hospital had two separate maternity clinics. The first clinic was staffed by elite doctors and their medical students. The second clinic was staffed by midwives. Now, you'd think the clinic with the top doctors would be the safest, right? But the opposite was true. A horrifying rumor spread throughout Vienna. Giving birth in the first clinic was a potential death sentence. Women would literally beg on their knees to be admitted to the second, midwife-led clinic. And they were right to be terrified. In the first clinic, a staggering 1 in 6 women, sometimes more, died from a mysterious and agonizing illness known as childbed fever, or puerperal fever. In the second clinic, the rate was dramatically lower. This horrifying discrepancy haunted a 28-year-old Hungarian doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis. He was a man of science, a man of data. He couldn't accept the prevailing theories of the day. His colleagues blamed the deaths on miasmas, or bad air. Others claimed it was due to cosmic or atmospheric conditions. Some even cruelly suggested it was because the women in the first clinic were of a weaker moral character. Semmelweis methodically debunked every single one. He compared everything, birthing positions, ventilation, even the route a priest took to deliver last rites, thinking perhaps the psychological terror of the bell was killing the women. Nothing explained the massive difference in death rates. He was consumed by the mystery, meticulously charting every single death, desperate to find a pattern everyone else was missing. Then, in 1847, tragedy struck, and with it, a breakthrough. Semmelweis's close friend and colleague, a pathologist named Jakob Kolechka, died after accidentally being pricked by a student's scalpel during an autopsy. Semmelweis was devastated, but as he read his friend's autopsy report, a chill ran down his spine. The internal damage, the symptoms, the progression of the illness, it was identical to that of the women dying from childbed fever. Suddenly, the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The doctors and medical students in the first clinic routinely performed autopsies on the deceased, and then, without so much as rinsing their hands, would go directly to the maternity ward to examine pregnant women and assist in deliveries. The midwives in the second clinic did not perform autopsies. The killer wasn't some mysterious miasma. It was the doctors themselves. They were carrying what Semmelweis called cadaveric particles, invisible pieces of death from the morgue to the mothers. His solution was as simple as it was revolutionary. He ordered every doctor and student entering his maternity ward to wash their hands and instruments in a bowl of chlorinated lime solution. Why chlorine? Because it was the only thing he knew of that could completely remove the foul, putrid smell of decomposition from the autopsy room. He reasoned if it could destroy the smell, it could destroy the deadly agent causing it. The medical establishment scoffed. They were gentlemen of science. The idea that their hands could be unclean and carry death was a profound, disgusting insult. But Semmelweis insisted, and the results were nothing short of a miracle. Almost overnight, the death rate in the first clinic plummeted from a terrifying 18% down to just over 1%. He had done it. He had solved the puzzle and saved countless lives. But this is where the story turns from a scientific triumph to a human tragedy. Semmelweis should have been celebrated, but instead he was met with furious resistance. His discovery implicitly accused his colleagues of being responsible for their patients' deaths. It challenged decades of medical dogma, and more importantly, it wounded the immense pride of the Viennese medical elite. They couldn't accept that such a simple thing, something a lowly maid would do, could be the solution to a complex medical problem. Because Semmelweis couldn't show them the cadaveric particles under a microscope, germ theory was still decades away. They dismissed his data as a coincidence and his theory as unscientific nonsense. His confrontational personality didn't help. He wrote open letters calling prominent European obstetricians irresponsible murderers. He was eventually fired, ostracized, and forced to leave Vienna. His relentless, desperate campaign to save lives was seen as a mad obsession. His behavior grew more erratic, and in 1865, he was tricked by a colleague into visiting an insane asylum, where he was forcibly committed. Just 2 weeks later, he was dead at the age of 47, officially from sepsis caused by an infected wound on his hand. A cruel, poetic irony. He likely died from the very type of infection he had taught the world how to prevent, possibly from a wound inflicted by the asylum guards. It took decades for the work of Louis Pasteur and Joseph Lister to prove the existence of germs, finally vindicating Semmelweis and making his hand hygiene the cornerstone of modern medicine. His story is a brutal reminder that a truth is not always welcome, especially if it challenges our pride and forces us to admit we were wrong. What simple, obvious truths do you think we might still be ignoring today? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe for more incredible stories, and we'll see you in the next one.